Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lawyer Show podcast. I'm your lawyer, Jeremy Rosenthal. So today on the Lawyer Show podcast, what I've been looking for is and are attorneys and lawyers that just have radically different areas than mine, and so across the board, obviously, I find a lot of folks that have marginally different practice areas, radically different practice areas, and then just titanically across the universe different practice areas than mine. I do criminal law. That's all I do. I love it. It's fun for me. I think it's interesting. But then again, variety is the spice of life, right? So one of the things on the podcast I've always kind of wanted to go and do is to just talk to as many different folks as I can who do radically different things than what I do, and things that are just different across the board. And one of the things I've kind of noticed is that I have a lot of the lawyers that I've talked with, and we've talked with all types on the show, do really in many ways kind of the same things, but in different ways, right? We all have our headaches. We all have our water cooler talk. We all have situations where we're dealing with a client or a judge or anybody, and kind of makes our eyes roll, kind of makes us sort of that we can all sort of commiserate about. My guest today, her name is Relani Belous, and Relani is she's a lawyer in Los Angeles, California. I also have today on the Lawyer Show podcast, before I get to Relani, my ground wire, Heidi Stark, is on with us today.
Happy to be here, as always.
That's right. Heidi's here to make sure that we don't go too bad, that we don't go too lawyer crazy, awful bad. She's representing all of you,
the common,
the citizens, the or citizen, as it were. We're going to talk a lot today about Relani's practice, and I'm going to let her talk to y'all a little more about that, because I'm obviously going to butcher it and not get it nearly as accurate as she will. But when I met Relani, she jumped off the page to me as a unicorn, and maybe her practice is very common in California, but it's not particularly common here. Relani does entertainment and intellectual property, contractual work in the entertainment industry out in California, and she's going to have a lot to add. And for instance, and here's what I'm going to start. I told Relani about 2 minutes ago, right before we started, I said the first question I'm going to ask you is to introduce yourself. That's the first thing. So she's been mentally gearing up for that for the last 3 minutes and 27 seconds. But I'm going to change that right now. So I want you to tell me. So you heard that awesome intro music that we have. I pay you. So this is what you do. I paid, I think, $18 for that. That might have been $17 too much. I don't know. Oh, you didn't like it? That's. But that's
I'm kind of with you on that one. I'm kind of with you on that one.
That's what you do, though, right? You were. I mean, that's trademark, copyright, kind of. Yes, maybe no.
Yeah, it's copyright. Yeah, I think probably musicians would argue that that's copyright.
Somebody's getting paid for it. I mean, because if I put the Rolling Stones on there, right, and we pushed it on Facebook Live, they'd cut that off. They would kick us off.
They would. They might, but you might also get some notoriety for it too. You might be a good PR scheme.
That might. There's no such thing as no such thing as bad media, huh?
No. A lot of people, they post. It's not a new thing, but, posting cease and desist letters online, sort of showing that whoever's sending it is the bad guy, and, it's for me online. And, you look at what they're doing to me. I'm an artist. I'm a fan. So, it's a fine line, how people draft these cease and desist letters now. It's very different than maybe years ago, where, there wasn't a platform to put it up there and showcase it on social media or these kinds of things. So, a lot of lawyers use the Jack Daniels. I think there was one that they used, and it was really very fan friendly and how they went about doing it. So
does the online cease and desist work? Does that have any legal impact, or can you pitch that in the trash?
It's sort of like Vegas. Maybe you'll win, but chances are, you might go back. But yeah, if it's a veiled threat, if you're not willing to follow up on it, it's anything. It depends who's the audience, right? If it's somebody, in the middle of the country who, freaks out because they got a lawyer letter, yeah, they'll probably take it down. But, unless somebody who is going to actually follow through on what they're saying, it just depends. It depends on your audience, right? I mean, like anything else in law.
Nothing says I love you quite like certified mail, right?
Right. Or anything that starts, please be advised.
Please be advised. Conduct yourself accordingly. Okay. Introduce yourself.
Right.
Now you go ahead and introduce yourself. So,
okay.
Yes.
I don't get any music like the
do
Academy
you want to we can replay what we paid the $17 for. We can do that for you.
Well, I'm Relani. Not too many Relanis in the world. And as you noted, I'm in Los Angeles. I try to think of myself as a unicorn. My name is unique, and I've had a unique path in life. I started out as an accountant and an auditor, where 1 and 1 equals 2, and became a lawyer where 1 and 1 becomes whatever you want it to be. And I worked in various capacities in-house for companies such as MGM, dealing with the franchises, Pink Panther, Rocky, James Bond, and actually left that and worked a little bit not in front of the camera, but in the adult business. I was the general counsel for Penthouse and worked with Friend Finder. So I left 007 for Double D's, and so I do know the First Amendment very well, probably like you do as a criminal person, and know the Constitution. And then worked for Stan Lee, managing all his intellectual property. I was the general counsel for POW Entertainment, which controlled all of Stan's work that wasn't over at Marvel. And battled that out. Got $1 billion lawsuit dismissed, and dealt with all kinds of stuff that was in the media. Stan sort of being in the paper, and all kinds of.
I'm sure Stan appreciated not having to deal with the $1 billion lawsuit.
Yeah. Well, that's always a bonus. And then, and then I said, all right, I've worked for, I've worked for everybody else, and I decided, all right, it's time to sort of work for myself. And, my practice, like you said, is pretty broad transactional work. Generalist sort of gets a bad name, but, I think, what am I doing? I'm working on talent agreements, so that makes me, I guess, an employment person. And I work with trademarks, branding. I do trademark prosecution. I love trademarks so much, I actually have my own website, the Trademark Channel, www.thetrademarkchannel.com, which sort of is like TMZ for trademarks, ranting about, current trademark cases, and just, educating consumers on what a trademark is.
Mm-hmm.
I work with independent producers and talent. So, films, one of them is probably going to be at Sundance, premiere at Sundance, and work with independent producers who, become, chain smokers and don't sleep at night because of trying to get financing and that kind of thing. So I guess my accounting degree comes in handy when it comes to looking at financing agreements and a variety of other things that come in the door, working with entrepreneurs, people, I think, who don't, the bigger firms just really are not set up for folks like that. These are
Mm-hmm.
people who normally probably wouldn't even go to a lawyer, they need representation.
So it sounds like and so it sounds like to me, because what you have the ability to do, I mean, just kind of to take even just 3 minutes to unpack a lot of those things that you just sort of shot out of the cannon there. There's that area is just so interdisciplinary that you have that it really is it would be hard, I think, for any practitioner to kind of do that for a bigger firm, right? Let me give you an example. My guess is that so you're talking about the soft intellectual property, you're talking about patents, you're talking about trademarks, copyrights.
Well, not patents,
trademarks, oh yeah,
trademarks.
And then not only that, you're talking about dealing with contractual negotiations, contracts, and you're dealing with the talent stuff. And somewhere, I'm guessing there's probably union issues that kind of find their way into your daily life with dealing with your clients. Yeah. So, I mean, it would just seem very hard to go to a big law firm, and it would be like going to a department store where you have to go to 4 different departments. When your clients come to you, it's all right there.
For the market I do, and you have a lot of these boutique, mid-sized firms in Los Angeles that handle, there's probably 2 or 3 firms that handle, 90% of the, the A-list talent. But I think people are coming to me, they're sort of the Davids against the Goliath. Mm-hmm. And so that's really not what a big firm is set up. It's cost prohibitive. For someone who's doing an independent movie to pay the kind of rates that a bigger firm's going to charge. Also, I'm very highly about service. So, I think a bigger firm, is worried a lot about, the Starbucks mm-hmm. of the world, the Wells Fargos of the world. So, and that's what's keeping the marble floors and the Fiji water in the refrigerator there, right? I mean, but, I got to roll up my sleeves and, as I say, my job is the divorce on the first date, right? So, we know it's going to maybe have a problem, but we just don't know when, right? So, and I'm like my, I mm-hmm. think I'm like my clients, right? I've sort of worked, for companies where, you kind of have to roll up your sleeves and do the work, and you understand what it's like to be, low budget, entrepreneurial, and sometimes people on the other side of the transaction, I don't think they've ever had to raise money. Mm-hmm. They've sort of come out of law school, making, mm-hmm. Probably what, most of the country makes, in 10 years, they make it in a year. So they don't have that, there's an expectation and an entitlement, I think, that comes with this industry. And that's, mm-hmm. Something that, no matter how logical you are, it doesn't seem to, sometimes that argument doesn't seem to win the day.
Talk about entertainment intellectual property. What is that?
Well, look, mainly you're dealing with 2 types of intellectual property. And, the best example, I think, is, people buy something. Let's say they buy it on Getty Images, or they buy it, and they buy a picture, let's say, of Tom Cruise, right? Mm-hmm. And you think, oh, well, I got this picture. Now I can do whatever I want with it. Well, you may be able to, the copyright comes from whoever took the picture, or whoever, if it's been transferred. So copyright is something that's fixed, right? It's not an idea. Like if I walked into a studio and said, oh, I have an idea for a Western, and the next day they do a Western, that's not copyright. If I wrote a script and I gave it to them and their script, and they came out with something, then, that's infringement, right? Mm-hmm. So that's copyright. You can, I can stick it in a drawer and never do anything with it again, and it's still copyright. Trademark is a little different. Trademark is based on, use in commerce. So, we all know famous trademarks, Coca-Cola, the Olympics, Starbucks. They're used in commerce. They're associated with a good or service. If I created a trademark, put it in a drawer, That's not trademarked, not in the United States at least. And the third thing that people deal with in this business is publicity, right? Somebody's image, like I said, if you take a celebrity and use their image to sell whatever, fitness products, supplements, that's somebody has a right of publicity in their image, likeness, identity. So those are really the three main elements that I'm dealing with. When it comes to entertainment, and that's kind of the gist of where that is, legally speaking.
Okay, so let's take for instance. Let's say a highly successful, extraordinarily handsome, very talented former lawyer goes to Los Angeles, has a book that we'll say is going to be like a Tom Clancy thing, right? With maybe a main character that, I don't know, shoots webs out of his fingertips.
I think I maybe heard about this before somewhere, but I don't know.
Anyway, talk us through the process. Talk us through when they come to Relani Belous. Talk us through the conversations that you're having. How does that book get protected? How about the images? How about the marketing type stuff? Talk us through that.
Yeah, look, I think, whether somebody's got their headshot in their back pocket or their script in their back pocket here, I think, 90% of this town is in development. When you ask them, what they do, it always starts, nobody says, I am this, they say, well, I'm in development with X, right?
That's what I do, by the way, is I stop people and I say, I'm a criminal, I say I'm a writer and a screenwriter, but I do criminal defense, right? I'm just doing that right now. But.
Well, criminal law and entertainment law are very close. Redheaded stepchilds or cousins or whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of these people, are just one step away from actually, seeing the inside of a prison. But that's another show. So somebody, I guess, look, somebody assuming they created the original work, because sometimes you find out, oh, you know what? I mean, I've had it where, somebody created a script and they forgot to mention, their cousin helped them, or their hairdresser gave them the idea. Sort of like the reading of a will. You do something. I mean, that's how you've got something, is all of a sudden, if you want to, find out where all these people are, publish the script and they'll show up, like with with what we started with, right? A cease and desist letter, right? You want to find any lost friends, here you go, right? And so, somebody comes to me and I, look, I don't shop scripts. Most lawyers don't. Usually that's done by, an agent. It's sort of a catch-22, right? In order to get an agent, you have to kind of have a history of work. In order to get work, you need an agent. So it's, people get it. People somehow enter. They can enter a film festival, or put their work out there. Now you have a lot of musicians did this. They bypassed the record companies, by going online. I mean, most of the music consumption is on YouTube. Where people sort of did that themselves. Somebody comes to me with something, and we want to make sure that nobody else was involved. It's yours. You pay it's a nominal fee to pay $65 to go, register your work with the Copyright Office, which probably makes sense to do. It gives you an enormous amount of rights. Then we look at it and see. But again, everyone's got a great idea. One is, 2 is execution, and 3 is, why would anyone want to read this, right? It's got a it's got to be something that moves people. And then again, then you got to figure out if somebody's willing to pay you for it, or, it's going to end up, somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, they send in these things to the Writers Guild to copyright things. And the Writers Guild obviously is not a governmental body. It's a union. And, that doesn't, to evidence that they had that, I mean, that's fine. But I mean, really, your money's better spent just, sending it to the Copyright Office and registering the copyright, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
mm-hmm.
but, assuming that somebody has something they own and they have a deal, then, I would look at that deal, whether it was a book publishing deal or, if it was a screenplay, or, let's say somebody comes and says, somebody wants to option my book, where, somebody maybe wants to turn it into a movie or a television show, then, the standard would be, somebody signs an option agreement. Somebody has the right to go out and do developmental activities for a certain amount of time, and then, purchase it at the end of the option. So that's one, that's one scenario.
You're watching JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. You can see JP, Kathy, and the Crew between 7:30 and 9 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This is the Lawyer Show podcast. We are on Facebook Live between 12 and 1 on Thursdays, and thanks to Heidi's good work, you can catch us on Spotify and on iTunes. I'm your lawyer, Jeremy Rosenthal. Today, my co-counsel is Relani Belous, and we are talking about entertainment, intellectual property. So you were kind of referencing there when I just broke away, you were referencing some of the contractual and transactional work that you do. Okay, so talk a little bit about that part of it. So they come to you, you make sure it's protected, it gets copyrighted. Then you've also said you're not the one that really shops it around, right? That's more of an agent. Then what happens when somebody gains steam and they get interest? You were talking a little bit about that. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, let's assume, whoever you are, you're a producer with connections, or you have relationships with agents or talent. And let's assume that, you have whatever the content is. You have a script, you have a book, somebody wants to option it. Usually, you don't see a lot of money on options. Usually someone takes the option for a certain amount of period, and then if they want to extend the option, that's when you'll see, maybe some payment, maybe a couple $1,000s. I mean, if you're, a higher end talent, you probably will see money, but let's just say the majority of the options, people aren't, they aren't paying for it because technically they're investing their time, and they're out shopping it and seeing if any talent's interested, or any distributors are interested, or even, trying to raise money, as to whether or not it makes sense to actually, develop.
So an option, an option would be then, so I understand. So let's say we take I don't see my book, the handsome lawyer that has relocated. Right. And delivers pizzas, practices a little bit of law, develops marvelous manuscripts, gives, you get it protected. An option would be where somebody on the other end says, I'm going to think about this, let's put it on hold, and they do have to pay for it. Am I right about that? And they're doing those things that you described?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's like $1, like they say, we'll option it for, 6 months, 9 months. They say, here's, $1, which, people, assume that it's been paid. And then the person says, they go out to their contacts. They're like, hey, you know what? I've got this handsome gentleman's book, and, would you be interested in it? And we think, we can get, superstar, whatever, to play the role. And They're like, all right, well, if you can get this, then, we're interested. And then, that's sort of the developmental, aspect. And then you're like, all right, well, they'll say, come back to us when you have the money, raised for whatever you're doing, or if you found, a studio or another production entity that's willing to put the money up, great. So let's assume that happens. Then you would exercise the option. You pay, usually the purchase price is either a percentage of the budget or it's an amount that you've agreed upon, and then you have rights to that script, and that includes, usually you get all the rights, meaning you own the script, you own the right to make a derivative work, you own the right to make a sequel, create merchandise, all those kinds of things. And then, depending on the option, usually someone will get, maybe a cut of the future revenue,
mm-hmm.
or you just buy it out. If they're part of a union, then, that's set, there's minimums in all the union agreements, collective bargaining agreements, it just depends, right, on,
mm-hmm.
on those parameters. And then, if you get finance, then you start casting the movie, and you hope that, people come and see it.
Would Ryan Gosling, would he be available? I mean, I'm just thinking he might, if this was a biography, which it wouldn't be, it would be fiction. I just, that's kind of, is he available, do we think? Heidi, what do you think? Do you think?
I don't know if he's the right person for that. I don't know.
I've just been told that.
Have you?
Anyway, we're not talking about me. So, okay. Do you have any part in some of those post-option negotiations? Do you do that on behalf of your client in those instances where whoever is the purchaser or potential purchaser, you stay involved in all that?
Yeah, I mean, usually, I'm involved in the option, and then, I'll serve, if we move forward, I'll serve as production counsel, assuming, I'm representing the production company, and, you go through and, as a lawyer, you have to give usually you have to give a chain of title opinion. So, it's important that, you make sure that your option's exercised, and that, this is the only author, and all those, all those kinds of things, right? Because, in order to get, insurance, you're going to have to, as a lawyer, verify that the chain of title's clear.
So I didn't appreciate that, Relani, and it stands to reason. It's like a piece of real estate. This thing that you're, this thing
like
that
a
you're
title
selling.
report,
Yeah,
right?
you've got to So you've got to certify to everybody that this is the real McCoy. That when it gets up the food chain, right, and it goes bonkers crazy, and everybody in the world sees it, that we're not going to have the hairdresser, like you were saying, show up, or somebody like that says, no, this is mine. I guess I didn't realize that part.
Well,
and why would I? I never
look,
do it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, right, that's like your clients. They're like, oh, have you ever been arrested? No, right? Right? Never. This is the first time I've ever been caught, or
is
right?
this? You have to phrase. See, Relani, you're going to get a little criminal 101 background here. So the proper way to phrase these questions is, what are they going to say? What is it they think? What is it they think you did? And that's a good way for them to talk sort of in the third person, really. And well, Jeremy, they're gonna say that I did this, and this. Anyway, but yes, I'm.
You can't ask if they actually did it, right?
Oh, sure, I can. But I good question. So yes, I can. There's no.
I always wonder, because if you.
Mm-hmm.
If you know they did it and they're on the stand and they said they didn't, isn't that?
Well, that's a great. This is a great question. The fact is, the truth is that I was not there, and the vast majority of times I don't know if they did it or did not do it. Most people, I will say, Relani, most people come in and deny having done anything wrong, or they will try to say what they have done and try to put it in some kind of context. I've said before on the podcast, of the millions, billions of people that I've represented, very, very few are just, I mean, I can count on one hand the ones that I just thought were just rotten, scary, dangerous to the core. Even the ones that probably ought to be incarcerated have, these are people too, and maybe their mind wasn't in the right place, or there's some mental illness, or there's some addiction, and not to go on and on and on, and because today's about entertainment, but in reality, the vast majority of them have. Everybody's got their own perspective about it. But to answer your question, I typically just let them talk, and a lot of times they'll tell me that they did it, and a lot of times they'll tell me that they didn't do it. But they don't. I find that getting to their wallet is the best way to do that is not necessarily through cross-examination, at least not yet. Maybe on the eve of trial, and so. And where witnesses are testifying, and even if I don't believe them, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily suborning perjury. It's got to be, and I tell people this right up front. In the vast majority of cases, we don't testify, and I'll say, look, I like you. You seem like a nice guy. Jeremy also likes having a license, so we're not going to have you testify in this case. So that's another common conversation that I have with a lot of folks, but it's their absolute right to get on the stand and testify. If I think they're going to lie, the ethical thing for me to do is there's a series of admonishments, and I think at some point I can always allow a client to testify in the narrative. And anyway, but this is all in the book. I mean, this is all going to in the handsome lawyer book that Ryan Gosling.
I have never, and I love the crime shows too, and I've never seen anyone out there going, you know what, you got me, I did it. Nobody else says that.
Not much. Yeah, so
it's the opposite. I mean, it's so the opposite of the entertainment industry. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, I had something to do with that film. I mean, right? You see 85 producer credits because somebody's cousin said, all right, put me on the roster.
Even if
you see that, right? You go to.
Oh, I was gonna say, even if it's Ishtar, do people? How about that one? Do they claim the ones that are?
You know what? There used to be a credit. It was an Alan Smithy credit, and meant that somebody wanted their name removed from the film, and so you would see like Alan Smithy, and that meant the person didn't want their name associated with the film.
Yeah. That's a good one, and judges can write a per curiam opinion, which means that I don't really like this, but I have to sign off on it because it's the law. I do want to talk about soft IP. I think we've kind of been talking a lot about it, but not necessarily kind of defining it. Tell people what soft IP is.
Well, yeah, soft IP is intellectual property. It's just not patent, so it's trademark. Copyright. I don't do patent. That's I don't have a slide rule or anything like that. So patent's a little bit more involved. And so like I said, I do soft IP, so just trademark, copyright.
Talk about
non-patent IP.
I was going to say, talk about influencers. You work with a lot of quote unquote influencers. That's a relatively new term, I think, on the planet. What type of work do you do for them?
Look, I work with, different, there's a client I have, and she was a child television star, and, some other people who, get deals. I also represent an agency I've worked with agencies that represent talent. These are folks that you don't necessarily, you're not going to see them at the Academy Awards, but, there's definitely, as we've seen with TikTok and some of these people, getting picked up for, videos that are creative or these kinds of things. And a lot of these brands look at the following. And, if people have a large following, then they become, sort of an influencer in certain things like, whether it's makeup or fitness or, new products that are out there. And, these brands approach folks to kind of put together, a campaign, as they say, for, whatever it is, toothpaste or that kind of stuff. And they come up with, maybe a 60-second thing on their own. And, they're paid either a flat fee or they, get paid by the video. And, these brands hire agencies to do that as well. There's agencies that manage some of these folks. They have a huge following. And a lot of it is also, for people who want to be in the entertainment business and actors, a lot of the agencies, want a certain number. I don't know what that number is anymore, but, 100,000 followers in order, for someone to even, be an actress or these kinds of things. So those numbers, and there's so many outlets, depending on where it is. Instagram's a big one, obviously, by Facebook, TikTok, and, brand integration. And, that raises a bunch of other issues about, when they do get the contract, you'll see like a 3-page attachment on FTC guidelines and what they can and can't say. And, there's disclaimers, but I think, most people are so used to seeing disclaimers as like terms of use, like people just click agree, they don't even read it, but it's there. And the FTC has come down on sites for not having those disclaimers or not saying it's sweepstakes or not. You'll see that on Amazon too, on reviews, like, I was paid to review this product or, whether or not it's a verified purchase. You see it on all kinds of websites, where the reviews are on products and things like that.
Heidi's big on TikTok. No,
I'm not a big TikToker. I do have a question
singing,
though.
Heidi?
What was that?
Are you singing on TikTok?
Yeah, that's what I do at night after I leave the firm.
I've got some really
singing.
good. So my daughter is on TikTok. I've got a really good. I don't know. I've got a lot of good ideas. She doesn't think so. What are your questions?
I had a question
Heidi?
about
the
influencers, because that you can just build your brand by getting on and talking about things is amazing to me. I have some friends who have done this, and this is their career now. But do you feel like when this, because it happens so fast, I feel like for some of these, and some of them are kids, are they coming in and getting protected with trademarks and whatever needs to happen to them? Do you see them coming in soon enough to be protected? Do they even know to get protected? Like, is that on them to go out and find a team of people to take them to the next level to protect them, or are they coming directly to you? Like, how do you see that happening?
Usually these influencers also have something else, like, they want to do a brand of clothing or, something that's sort of in the background, that they may want to trademark. Again, a trademark, let's keep in mind, right? It's associated with a good or service. So we need, we need to make sure that, that's, something that they're doing. But, you can brand your name. Obviously, we've seen that done with Martha Stewart and, a famous Amos and all these, people who do, trademark their actual name, Donna Karan, Calvin Klein, right? So, the question is whether they do that. It is still, I think, people with a lot of things, and I think, Jeremy, you can appreciate this is, I think, when I went to law school, if people saw Law and Order, then they're a criminal expert, like, oh, well, I watched LA Law or, which, 90% of the law shows are inaccurate on TV, right? Like a surprise witness.
Don't tell everybody my secrets, okay? I don't.
But you see all these shows where a surprise witness comes in, like that's people believe like that's the way the court system works. Like all of a sudden, stop the trial. Wait a minute.
It depends on the fee that you pay, frankly. But we'll give you all the justice you can afford. I mean, anyway.
That's true. So, but what I'm saying is, I think a lot of people are, again, and it's lawyers' fault. They're put off by lawyers. They really, I think, one of the things people believe in trademark, I think, is, it's sort of like setting up a corporation. You mail it to the Secretary of State, or they stamp it, and now you're a corporation. I think people think trademarks are the same, those kinds of things, or they've gone through a service and, they didn't think it through, and, they get, a 48-page letter back from the trademark office with an office action that, sometimes it is par for the course, but sometimes it could have been avoided if it was done, in a way that, someone actually, thought it through. But, it's like, it's sort of like, do you want to put your brand in the hands of, sort of a low budget, thing, where it's an impulse buy like gum, or do you actually want to, invest? I mean, that's the difference between a career and a hobby, right? Then all right, well, at night I make a quilt, that's the thing. But if that's what your livelihood is, then, it's an investment in your brand. We spend more, I'm guessing people spend more getting, manicures and coffees every day to, if you add it up, than, investing in their brand. So, I don't think you have to go, more isn't better. You see people applying for 25 marks or something. I'm not a big believer in that, but, it offers you a protection that, is your livelihood, right? I mean, that's kind of it, right? We all know what these brands are, right? If you go to the store and you're like, here's a brown drink with some fizz in it versus Coca-Cola, what's somebody going to buy, right? I mean, right? I mean, that's kind of, part of the zeitgeist of life, right?
Very good. Yes, and you drop zeitgeist. Very first time that has been done on this podcast. Never first time.
I'm taking the SAT after this.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. What are some of the headaches that you have? What are some of the spots where you see things kind of developing? What type of problems do you see from your clients when they come in that you try to head off? What headaches are there for you?
I think one of the number one headaches is, I have a lot of people who go into business with people they know, right? And as the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. People they know, and they've known them for a while, or they're friends, and they decide to go into business, right? And I think, again, that's like the difference between, when you date someone and you live with them, right? You're going to see, the floor, the dishes in the sink, the nail biting, all these kind of wonderful things that, someone can leave at home when they come to you, like the things.
If that's the only downside to this, nail biting, squeezing the middle of the toothpaste.
Yeah, but what happens is, people are like, oh, we don't need an agreement, or, this kind of thing, or I didn't sign this, or we meant to file this, but we never, filed the trademark, or, I've been using this name forever, but I never did a search. I think a lot of that is just not anticipating, it's sort of like, seeing a sign that the bridge is washed out and you're flooring it, right? That's really what's happening. And I think, people, most of the things that we worry about don't happen. I think it's the things that we don't ever think, hopefully you stick a contract in a drawer and you never have to look at it again. But I think, you have to anticipate that, someone out there, is going to hold you up, or, if you worry about it later, it's sort of like, oh, like I got a lump in my neck. Oh, well, if it gets bigger, I'll go to the doctor. Right. I think people don't anticipate human behavior. And I think, similar to criminal thing, right? There's a lot of people on, I watch forensic files that had no criminal history, and, there's a trigger and that's it, like all of a sudden, there's luminol sprayed all over your house, right? Like, what happened?
I'll say this, Relani, you watch a lot more criminal law TV than I can stomach. We had last week, we had our movie review.
You don't have to.
Yeah, no, I it just upsets me. It upsets me because I'm like, they would never do that. But I will say this: I do talk to jurors when I'm picking a jury. I will say things like, because the prosecutor's always trying to distance themselves from TV because they're trying to lower expectations. Right. They're trying to get the jury to kind of believe that, well, that's just television and that's not reality and that's just. And I try to say, folks, no. Well, guess what? And we live in Collin County, USA, which I know you're in Los Angeles, Relani, but Collin County, USA, we're actually the center of the planet and the galaxy, for that matter. Just ask anybody here, and they'll tell you this. But
can you get an oat matcha in town? I'm just kidding.
We're gonna need help on that. We're gonna need some help on that, but. We have extremely well-funded police here, and so I try to explain to jurors, look, if you're going to get CSI anywhere, guess where? You're going to get it here. And who here wants to expect less of your police? Who here? We should demand CSI here. And then the jury starts nodding with me, and then the prosecutor won't talk with me for another 2 weeks. So that's kind of the circle of that life.
Martial law in Texas? Who would have ever thought that?
So anyhow, yeah, we definitely have Texans also have a complex about California too. Don't ask me why. Again, I told you before, I'm originally from California, but I got here, but so is everybody, frankly, in where we live. Everybody is a transplant from somewhere else. A lot of Californians. And when I tell people I've been here since I was 11, I'm practically a native. So there's that. But talking about
you left the blue for the red. Yeah.
Well, it was I think we moved in well, I don't want to age myself, but it was it was a minute ago. I will say this: we go back to California a lot. People think that the freeways are dangerous, and I tell them it's not, because it's impossible to get injured at 4 miles an hour. So there's that part of it.
Yeah, you know, look, Ann Richards had a great agent. She was in a Doritos commercial. Right?
Is that right? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I was talking to somebody about Ann Richards just this morning. So she has definitely left her print. We got a lot of football fans in Texas, and I don't know. You watch any football? Yes, no, maybe? No.
Not unless I'm forced to watch it.
Not unless you're forced. Okay, Heidi so we have in Texas, we have your Fighting Texas A&M Aggies.
College football.
College football, that's a big deal. Anyway, we're totally putting this cart in the ditch at this point, Relani.
We've really gone off the rails here.
I know you were thinking that this was going to be like a really high-minded discussion, that this was going to be material
I know. I'm from LA. There's no high-minded.
Well, I am just...
People get whiplash, Well, when you did go to restaurants, people, get whiplash every time somebody walks in the door. You're like, who is that?
Oh, who is?
Now that you can go to restaurants again in California.
A lot of people watching.
That's true. Well, you got to put your mask back on.
Yeah,
now,
you do. Yeah.
So getting back to it, what is hot? What is hot and what is not on the legal front?
The hot thing now, and we'll see if it lasts, is NFTs, which are, they deal with it, it's intellectual property, it's copyright, trademark, and people are paying, you see people paying billions of dollars. I think somebody bought something with Sinatra's towel, or, these kinds of things. Millions and millions of dollars, which, an NFT, for people who don't know, it's not a new band at Coachella. It's actually a non-fungible token, which in layman's terms is digital art. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like, an image that, you own. It's a link. The problem is that link, or whoever's got that link goes bankrupt, that thing's gone. That you can show it's sort of artwork that you wouldn't hang up in your house. It's digital artwork. I mean, and obviously, whoever owns it, um, you know, uh, you're not, it's like any piece of art, right? You own the physical art. You don't own the copyright. That doesn't give you the right to take your artwork and create mugs and T-shirts and things like that. But, that's sort of what, it is, you got Bitcoin, you got all things that people are investing in, and NFT is a hot thing. You see a lot of that stuff. We'll see whether it goes. There's a lot of pros and cons about that. What you're actually getting. But from a digital art perspective, but it's definitely a great, I'm sure, great conversation piece to have at a party, or impress the ladies or whatever you're doing with it. So, that's one thing.
So one of our lawyers, Relani, is he can't stop talking at our office. He can't stop talking about Dogecoin and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That those are I frankly I have been kind of an idiot about NFTs. I've not really understood them. There was on CBS Sunday Morning, they had a really good piece, about a week or two ago on NFTs, and there was a piece of art that sold for like $66 million in NFT. I don't know if you knew, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I mean, look, I think, there's a lot of opportunity maybe, for older things that people, want a screen grab of. They were talking about it for the adult business as well. A lot of these scenes that, you have people, with and things like that. So, you can create it pretty much from everything. It's, it raises issues on rights, right? Do you have the right to, license this and use the trademark, use the image? At the end of the day, I mean, these are new things, but, copyright is copyright. The same standards apply. I think the internet, when we first saw that came out, it made theft. I think people thought, theft didn't exist if it existed on a computer, and, we saw a lot of those cases. But I mean, really, the Napster case, I mean, that's pretty much Spotify and a lot of things that, have become, they were sort of modified and over time, but, they existed. It just got, kind of altered, along the way, and so, it's all about disruption, right? I mean, it's about what that disruption is, and, we'll see if people come back to movie theaters, and that's why you see these things on streamers like Netflix and Amazon and Amazon buying MGM, for content, right? Because, who's going to have the content that you're going to want to see? Because who knows when we're, what's going to happen with movie theaters and things like that as well. So those are two things.
And you get to work, you were saying, on both sides. So you've been able to work for the talent, sort of like the three of us, and then you've been able to work for the on the management production side. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, look, I mean, and I worked on that side. I mean, their goal is, they build franchises. Most studios, 10% of the assets are paying for the 90% of failures that are, there, right? And so, I understand what they're doing, right? I mean, they're gonna pretty much, it's like the Grinch, right? They even take, the candy canes out of the kids' hands, right? I mean, that's the job of the studio, to take everything, and, hopefully, I can, it's like I can't stop the shooting, but, maybe we can put a silencer on it so it doesn't sound as loud. I mean, that's, it's kind of, that's kind of the role here. But I mean, if somebody's paying you money, for something, that's commerce, right? That's capitalism, that's commerce. And, the studio is going to want all the rights. They're going to want you to sign over everything. And, I'm surprised they don't have an addendum for a kidney as well, but who knows?
Here's a question for you too. how did the pandemic really affect things? I'm kind of curious because I see things. I watched, not that I watch things like Ted Lasso, right? And I see
Oh,
a
my
bunch
friend loves that.
I see a bunch of people everywhere, and I'm wondering, did they shoot this pre-pandemic, post-pandemic? What effect did COVID have on just your everyday practice? The copyrights, the clients that come in, the influx, the visual art, the everything. What talk about its impact, and are things unwinding?
Look, I mean, last year I was pretty busy. I mean, still busy. I think people who are entrepreneurial, they find a way to do things. You had a lot of things potentially in development. I had people, I had someone produce a movie, out of state, not in California, there's other states like, that didn't have as many restrictions like Oklahoma or, wherever you want to say, but, they're governed by the guild. So the guild has certain restrictions on, how you handle talent with COVID and the testing. And, but, production obviously went way down. The problem that caused is, as an independent producer, you're really worried about, whether or not you're paying somebody $50 or $70 a per diem. And, that affects your budget. And now, you got to test everyone. You gotta have zones. There's zones on film shoots and things like that. So, all that does is increase the price. However, the mentality of people negotiating deals still want all the same things that they want. They want the money up front. They want, a rental car. They wanted this for, all these folks. And I think, that's really, in their opinion, they're like, well, that's what you chose. That's your business risk. And that's part of your business model. So I think, did it change anything? I think it limited, again, it limited access because, you had, that you had to budget for these things. So it definitely impacted, independent producers, in that regard. Now, that, things are back up and running, more, you've got a shortage also of, like trailers and, so people want all these things on the set and there's like a shortage of trailers. There's a shortage of these kinds of things. So, that all, supply chain, affects it, but, people are still, look, I mean, I've got people developing, I've got, a few movies that are, in pre-production, going to production. So, and I have people who are entrepreneurs who are creating businesses or, there were a few people that tried to, were entertainment getting into the PPE business, which was probably not the best idea. But, people who are entrepreneurial, they find a way to do what they want to do. That I think the interesting part will be what happens where these things go, right? Because you're going to see them, more on, on a streamer or those kinds of things, because obviously it's a logistics, it's a logistics issue. So that's kind of where that is. But they're busy. I mean, they're all busy. And they got to refresh the content, and they got to have they got to be out there. That's what people want. So that's these guys are looking for content.
What are some closing thoughts that you might have here for everybody?
I think just in general, I think if it's something you believe in, go forth. But make sure that you think about what your brand is, what your messaging is. I mean, at the end of the day, people remember your brand. Also, LA is, while the entertainment industry, affects so many, it is a very small community. And I think, just in deals, you're going to see the same people over and over again. And, look, I think at the end of the day, kindness is free. regardless, and make sure that, you think things through, and if you're going to sign something, maybe have a lawyer look at it. Or if you're not going to sign something, maybe talk to a lawyer, even briefly. We're not all, we don't all have fins on our backs. So
not all of us, not that people can
many.
see, not that we can't hide,
yeah.
but it is.
It's, that's my motto. It's a jungle out there, as you can see from the cactus tree. So
that's right. I was going to say I don't think it's Shark Week anymore.
No, we're past Shark Week.
We're past Shark Week at our office, Relani. Every week is Shark Week at our office. Every week. This has been a very, very successful episode of the Lawyer Show podcast. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good one.